Hello and welcome to Mystic Visions with DrShiny. This is a monthly reading for the month of June for Leo. So let's go ahead and get started for Leo for June. Everything upright so far. Oh, your fears and overall message came up in reverse. Okay. All right, Leo. So for you, you've got the Queen of Wands for your current situation. You can tell by the figure here, she's a pretty good gardener, right? So this is a person who is a master in the domain of action or willpower, getting things done. But she doesn't so much direct others with this willpower. She doesn't use this gift to organize the world around her, but she organizes her home life, her garden. She is really good at developing herself, at growing herself, and taking action to make her life better. Okay, so this is an energy that's been with you. You may have been kind of feeling like you're wanting to organize things a little bit around you, or that you're ready to kind of focus on yourself, focus on your own personal growth, and to build something, right? Build something good out of your life. Um, and so what's crossing you or influencing you is this Ace of Coins. And this, you can, again, these pictures are very self evident. There's kind of like a manna from heaven type of a situation going on here. So this is a new material opportunity, something that kind of comes out of the blue and is not necessarily expected, but it just sort of pops up. And so there's this new opportunity for you to find some type of material satisfaction. There's a lot of roses in here. She's like standing in a rose garden. I guess you can't see it back there, but she's standing in a rose garden. Gardening seems to be a pretty a strong theme with what you have going on here. And that could be metaphorical. So it can be that you are investing or planting seeds and starting these projects that sort of grow on their own and turn into something in due time, right? So what you're moving away from is this fool here, and the fool, people use the term fool as something that's derogatory, but it's really not. It's an energy that is faithful and childlike, and you don't really have like all of this audacity to feel like you know what's going to happen, so you kind of allow things to come however they may. And there's this just kind of going with the flow and allowing the world to be whatever it is, right? So you're coming from that, and that's a little bit aimless of an energy, right? There's a little bit of just um, not taking a whole lot of agency, or not taking the reins in your life so much, and taking the kind of the back seat. So you're moving into more of an active place where you are planting these seeds within yourself. You're becoming aware of what you want to nurture, and what you want to develop and grow within your own life. So you're choosing more of a direction than just kind of like letting things take their natural course. And that's neither good nor bad, but that's just kind of the way that it seems to have gone for you, is that you were a little more aloof, and now you're getting a little more focused and figuring out what you want and what you want to do, right? What we have for what you're headed towards is the Six of Swords. And the Six of Swords represents a difficult transition, moving from one situation to the next. It's not something that's harmful to you or breaking you down. It's kind of more like ripping off a band-aid. It is a temporary adjustment or pain that is good for you in the long run, something that's necessary, something you have to go through. So, I don't know, perhaps you've been enjoying having some extra time off of work or something to do some things around the house, but ahead, there's going to be that difficult transition of going back to work or things picking up and becoming busier, something of that nature. Or perhaps this is just talking about some grander transition in your life, in general, where there is something that lies ahead, some changes that perhaps come along with these seeds that you've planted. There's some growing pains to be dealt with. But this is a sort of warning to look out for that, not so much to avoid it, but so that you are somewhat expecting that every good thing, every change has a way of feeling a little bit negative if you're not careful, because you're going outside of what you're comfortable with. We instinctively become comfortable with whatever is commonplace or sort of mundane in our life. It fades into the background of our awareness, and we're not ordinarily fixing our focus on it, right? But what happens is, if you're moving to a different situation, even if overall the situation is a better situation, you're liable to be uncomfortable with it because it's new and it's a change of pace. It's something out of the ordinary, and that just by default tends to make us uncomfortable. Unless, of course, you become only comfortable when things are dynamic or changing, and that's a whole nother problem, right? So, anyway, this is just to say that there is a transition from whatever state that you've found yourself in the past and wherever you've been to some new transition, and it's not going to necessarily feel great. It takes some work. Okay, so the foundation gives you a little bit of insight of what kind of lesson overall is the universe trying to teach you through the situation. What needs to come into balance? What's in the subconscious that's welling up, and the universe is kind of trying to speak to you through the situation. And this is kind of what that is about. And in this case, it's the Six of Cups. So the Six of Cups is about nostalgia and about looking back at past circumstances. So it can be a little bit of a trap sometimes to be too fixated on the past, or to be looking back too fondly, or negatively as well, because you can sort of define yourself by what has happened to you in your past, but that's not really who you are, right? So what you've been through is just, pages of a history book, but you constantly have the ability to change who you are. You're under no obligation to be the same person that you were, an hour ago. So definitely you're not defined by the things that you've been through in your past, but we tend to believe that we are. So different things like traumas or hardships of your past, everybody tries to, subconsciously impose this belief on you that those things define you, that those things are a description of what you've been through. But that's really just a fairy tale. At any moment, you're free to be whoever you want to be, to take the direction that you choose, to start off on a whole new path, or something like that. The question is, how willing are you to stray outside of what's familiar and what's comfortable, right? So that's the foundation of this whole message is, how are you looking back at the past? Are you looking at this as, are you looking back at the past and thinking, that's the way that I'm supposed to be, that's the way that I am? And so therefore you're resistant to any sort of growth or change, because growth is not always comfortable, or are you looking at the past as something that made you, handicapped in some way, or unable to go down certain paths, or have certain abilities, or something of that effect? And both of those things are sort of in your mind, right? And now, I mean, I'm not going to tell you the past isn't real. I'm not going to go that far in the context of a tarot reading, because this is a general reading and not everybody's ready to hear that kind of thing. But what I will say is that the past doesn't have to define who you are. Okay. All right. So what you have in your crowning thoughts, or what you are consciously thinking about, or what's been on your mind, is the Lovers. So the lovers, obviously has a connotation of being about romance and soulmates and that kind of thing. The lovers, very romantic card. But that's kind of the surface meaning of the card. The deeper meaning is all about choices, and having to make these choices and these commitments, right? So the ideal love, we like to think of it as though, and this is kind of the fairy tale of it, is that it's a love that you always feel and you never have to work at it. It's just effortless, and all the time you want to be with a person. And That's a little bit of a fairy tale, or at the very least, that's not strictly speaking love. That is infatuation, right? But love is a conscious choice, something that you do even when you don't necessarily feel like doing it. So, and people have different opinions about what love is. And really, the problem is there's only one word, love, in the English language to refer to many, many different ideas. And we should probably go about finding individual words to describe different aspects of love. But this particular aspect of love that we're talking about here is the choice, right? And so you have to think of it like this. Is it more impressive? Is it more genuine? Is it more evidence of love for people to remain together when they never wanted to be apart? Or is it a stronger love if people remained together even though they wanted to be apart at some points, right? Now, if you never want to be with a person, obviously that's not a good relationship, and that might be unhealthy for you to remain in as well. So you could be caught in some sort of um, some feeling that you are unworthy or that you don't deserve a happy, healthy relationship, and that's an abusive relationship. That's different. But on the other hand, a choice that you make to see the best in a person, where they bring you happiness and all that, and you're going to ride through the rough periods knowing that it's not always going to be perfect. That's the kind of love that this is talking about. Now, this isn't necessarily in this situation referring to a relationship. And that's where people get hung up a lot. It could be, it very much could be referring to a relationship for you, but the more general meaning of this is that anything that is really going to pay off, any lasting relationship, any great love in your life, is something that you're going to have to commit yourself to. And oftentimes it doesn't always feel great. It doesn't always feel like something you want to do, Take any, musician or artist. You might look at them and think, oh, what a great life they have. But if you ask any of them, it's not always easy to devote yourself to that craft. Sometimes you have to force yourself to work on your craft even when you don't feel like it. Otherwise, you don't really make any progress. So it's something that like you have to rise above the sort of everyday weather and figure out what is the climate here. What's going on a grander scale, and how is this something that is worth investing yourself in? Okay. So, what we have for your advice is the Page of Coins. So, this is to suggest that what you're going through right now is the start of something new. Don't feel like you have to make all the right decisions. Don't think that everything is going to be easy. Don't think that there's going to be complete success. Um, on the contrary, figure out that you are new at this, and that part of this experience, part of the joy of going through this experience, is the failures, is the hardships. Failure is an option, and it's a great, great teacher. So don't shy away from failure. Think that like, don't feel embarrassed by it, and don't feel like you have to master the situation. This is something that is definitely a part of life, failure. So, and this isn't an omen of failure. This is just to say that you are starting off. The pages are childlike energy that is not extremely matured or tempered. And so there is a tendency for missteps and for the situation to not quite go as planned because you're still gaining that valuable experience as this more childlike energy. Um, Particularly, and this is being the Page of Coins, it's within the material realm. The Page of Coins is very optimistic and um, has a lot of plans for the future. He appreciates the material and everything, but like I said, he's got some developing to do. So don't take yourself too seriously to where you get discouraged, is the important part. Okay, so your environment card, what you see basically when you look out around you, you see the Seven of Wands. Okay, so this is somebody who's trying to be a leader, somebody who is trying to get other people on the same page. It might feel as though there's some chaos, or basically this could be the need for that leader. So there's some disagreement, some chaos, some scattering around, and a need to focus those scattered individuals under one cause or to inspire, right? So this is around you. What you're seeing is that somebody needs your example more than your success, right? So perhaps what you're going through here is not so much about, getting it right, being perfect, but it's about teaching somebody who's watching you how to deal with failure and how to keep going, right? So if you look back at your life, I'm sure that you can find all kinds of failures, but that is something that you've grown from, right? So it may be that somebody is looking on to you to see, to learn how to do that with tact and dignity, and how to continuously grow, not let things get you down. Okay. Your fears card, the first one that you had in the negative here, you've got the Hierophant. And in the negative, so there can be some overbearing, um, religion, institutions, anything like that. So thinking about institutions, let's throw a couple out. Religion's one, marriage is one, school is one. Um, the bank is an institution, finances, debtors, things like that. These are different invented systems that humans have created to facilitate a social life in one way or another. And so being in the reverse here, there's an indication that you're afraid of running afoul of some of these institutions. You are perhaps putting a little too much faith in these institutions. Not so much that I'm seeing the Tower in your reading, that didn't come up, but this being in your fears card, it suggests that you are avoiding bucking the traditions a little, perhaps a little too much. So stop and ask yourself, all these traditions and conventions that you enjoy or that you're a part of or that you follow, to what extent are they helping your life, and to what extent are they being harmful or holding you back, or that kind of thing. So it's not, you're not a bad person for questioning that, because a lot of times what you'll find is that the institution itself might not be the problem, but it might be your interpretation of what it means. You might be too hard on yourself because you're not adhering to somebody else's goals, that they've set for you, and maybe those goals are not, strictly speaking, even natural. We have a tendency to not think positively of ourselves in this society unless we are working and doing something. So that means, when you're doing nothing, you don't have a neutral view of yourself. You're actually having a negative view of yourself, and that shouldn't be that way, right? But that's because as a society, we tend to value busyness, productivity, hard work, and things like that. So we have to find ways of adjusting our baseline and getting back to a sane and realistic view of our lives. Okay. All right. So overall message, or where this heads in the long run, is this Knight of Cups, and it was in the reverse. reverse as well. So the Knight of Cups is one of the more romantic figures in the deck, but in this case, the romance and everything, the go with the flow. This can be a little bit of that chaotic energy that we were talking about, or being immature, unordered, especially being in the reverse here. So this person is, well, immaturity really comes to mind with this, but they are not willing to be as practical. They're kind of following their whims a little bit more, and they have a little bit of a tough time with being serious or being responsible, right? Now, overall message, this is in this case, I think, telling you a little bit of a lesson. It's really not so much that this is you, because that's not what it looks like in the rest of your um, reading here. But what it looks like is that this is an illustration that's meant for you. This is what you're trying to learn to come away from. If you're too, wistfully floating about in life, you're just going to end up with a lot of drama, a lot of hardships, and things like that. Not that there's anything intrinsically wrong with the drama and the hardships. Some people enjoy that life very much, and they're perfectly fine to do that. But there comes a time, usually with maturity, with some age, that we get tired of that and we want to create something a little bit more lasting and less superficial. And that's kind of the period that you're moving through here. So keep this in mind, that you're not wanting to just have everything be super dramatic as much anymore, and you're trying to find a way to get your life a little bit more on a steady pace. Okay, so that's about it for the reading today for my Leo friends. Please leave me some comments, like, subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next month.